Jim, we'll maybe start with team news. Obviously, a lengthy injury list. How are the guys keeping?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been well documented in terms of the amount of good quality players that were missing. The guys in the treatment room are working really hard on them. There's one or two longer term ones, but a few of them are getting that little bit closer. This weekend will probably come a little bit too soon for some of them, but we're really looking forward to having those guys back, because the business that we've done in the transfer window, I think, was exceptional. To bring in the quality of player that we did, I just think the frustration is that we haven't been able to get all those guys available to allow us to have the success that we wanted in those early games.
Is there anything you've been able to pinpoint as to why so many players are getting injured, or is it just a case of really bad luck?
I think it mostly comes down to bad luck. It's certainly the most that I've ever had in my time as a manager. I think if they were all muscular type injuries, then we would certainly be asking more questions. But there's an awful lot of contact injuries there that we unfortunately have got no control over. Ryan Strain, got a bang on the knee. Dario Namo, ankle injury. Obviously Isaac Papo over in Vienna, just a tackle. So there's not a lot you can do about some of them. The Ross Graham one was just kind of a carryover from last season. He just was getting similar problems with the same hamstring. So obviously we decided that needed surgical intervention. But no, look, we're pleased with what we're doing on a day-to-day basis in terms of the training and the intensity of that. We're not much different to a number of teams out there. Celtic have had injuries recently. Even Liverpool down in England. Frimpong has done his hamstring. So you can do everything right based on the sports science research that you've got available to you. But unfortunately, the sport that we're in, injuries happen.
Obviously, a really disappointing result in the Conference League qualifier a couple of weeks ago now. They say time is the best healer. You've had this wee break. Any more chance to sort of reflect on that, or is it a case of sort of moving on now and putting it behind you?
Well, look, the European experience was great for everybody connected to the club. I've had lots of letters and bumped into a lot of Dundee United supporters in the last couple of weeks who have told us about the experience that they've had, and the most memorable time that some of them have ever had being Dundee United supporters, particularly some of the younger ones. The game in Vienna, the atmosphere, the performance from the players on the park. So it certainly generated a great deal of excitement. And the performance again then in the return leg at Tannadice, where obviously we get knocked out on penalties. So that was a really good experience, but it was certainly extremely demanding on the group because of the injuries that we had suffered. I think that's probably the biggest frustration that I've got as manager, is that we'll never know how well we might have done had we had opportunities to rotate the squad and freshen things up. But credit to the group that was available. There was a big ask for them to play European football on a Thursday and then play domestically on a Sunday, and I think that certainly showed in the league game against Kilmarnock at Rugby Park most recently.
Turning attentions to this weekend, first Dundee derby of the season, always an exciting game, one that you look forward to presumably.
We're all looking forward to it, yeah, and the new guys are really looking forward to it, because these are the types of games that are the attraction of coming to Scotland, and we put a kind of presentation thing together to help with our recruitment strategy and just to show some of the new signings, the atmosphere at games like the Dundee derby, and they were all pleasantly surprised at how well the supporters turned out and how intense and hostile the atmosphere can be. And I think all players are desperate to be involved in games like that. So this Sunday will be no different. There's a lot on the line for both sets of players, for both myself and Stephen, and for obviously the supporters. They all want to go to work on Monday morning with the bragging rights. So hopefully we can put on a good performance, get the result that we want, and it'll be the Dundee United supporters who are happy come the final whistle.
It's still early doors in the wee campaign, but how important do you think 3 points, how big do you think that would be, sort of for the confidence if nothing else?
Yes, we need to get back to winning ways. It's as simple as that. And we've had a really good week's training. We've been able to get a lot of energy and a lot of freshness into the group. And as I said, there's a real air of excitement now building up towards this big game. So I think it's equally important for both teams. I think in terms of getting those 3 points, and it's important for us. If we want to go and have the kind of success that we had last season, then we certainly need to get back to winning ways.
Just one final one from me. Obviously, you've got a new striker as well in Nikolai. How delighted are you to get him in? Yeah,
really pleased. He's a very, very good player. He's not an out-and-out target man, albeit, when you look at him physically, he's 6'3", 6'4", leads the line really well, but technically very good. Very mobile as well for such a big fella. He can go and lengthen the game, and I think it's another good, attacking addition for us in that area of the pitch. Obviously Max Waters unfortunately suffered an injury, but I think Nico will certainly come in and fill that void for us while we wait on Max's return. But he's a great age, he's got a lot of room for development, and he's a player that we're delighted to have.
Do you expect any more comings and goings before the window closes? Or?
No, I think we're pretty much done now. Obviously, the injuries have made us question one or two areas of the squad, but given the business that we've done, we've signed 14 new players. I've got to be grateful to the board and to all of the people involved for helping us get the deals over the line. I think once everybody is back and available, then we've got a really strong competitive group of players that can go and challenge in this league.
Looking at Sunday, especially for the new ones that have come in, have you broken the news to them yet that there is no bus and they're walking up the hill?
Yes, they're aware of the tradition of walking from Tannadice up to Dens, and I really enjoyed that myself last season. Hadn't never done it before, so I think it adds to the excitement of the occasion, and it'll be a new experience, I'm sure, for most of them, but one that we're very much looking forward to.
It's certainly a very different Dundee United this season from last season, but it's a different Dundee as well. Is that what adds to the excitement for you, preparing for this, not knowing really fully what you're going to get?
Look, I've watched Dundee, in pretty much every game that they've played this season, doing our research and doing our analysis, and I think they're a really well organised outfit. Defensively, they look solid. I think there's a clear understanding of what the manager's asking them to do, and similar to ourselves, they've added a lot of new faces. So, it's very much a different, two groups of players, and it'll be interesting to see, who comes out on top on the day.
And what's the most important thing that the players can do in their preparation this week to get themselves ready for what they're going into?
Well, our whole training, this week has been, geared around intensity and energy levels. I think in any game of this kind of magnitude, I think you've got to, show a level of passion and desire. That's what the supporters demand, and that's what they want to see from their team. So, the players will be fully understanding of what's expected of them, come kick-off at 2 o'clock.
And they'll be going into talking about passion, a ground where there's passion from all sides coming at them, something they're prepared for?
Definitely. I mean, look, I think the fixtures last season, both at Tannadice and Dens, I think the atmosphere generated by both sets of supporters was it's a really good spectacle. And of course, the most important thing on the day is to make sure your team wins, and that's all we want.